Shavuos. And one of the questions that this discussion should come to answer, it's a little philosophical, this class, and we're going to try to have a little better understanding of why Judaism has so many technical rules. Wouldn't it be sufficient to concentrate on our emotions and on spirituality? And what's more important, the action or the spirituality? And this is a question that I'm sure has come up before. I hear the question often, especially by Jewish people who don't want to follow the details of the laws. And one of their claims is, what do you need all these details? Does God, God needs you, cares if it's a little different, if it's a little this, a little that, if it's, you did it a little less, a little more, does God really care? In fact, I was trying to put up a mezuzah for so, and he calls me up, he needs a mezuzah. Okay, no problem. I drove there, I brought a mezuzah, and I told him, well, this is not so simple over here because, first of all, you're intermarried. So we're not going to make a bracha. The house is in your name or in your wife's name, So he's intermarried and the house is in both of their names. So I told him, first of all, it's not so simple because you're intermarried. We can't really say that the house is obligated completely in a mezuzah because it's not a house solely owned by a Jew. But I told him, we're allowed to put up a mezuzah. He said, don't worry, I'll make the bracha. I don't need you to make the bracha. I'll make the bracha. Rabbi, you just give me the mezuzah. So it's like, well, why are you making a bracha? Is it for Hashem or for your own guilt? Why are you making the bracha if you're not obligated to? But he's trying to cover up the fact maybe that he, feels guilty about, being intermarried and whatever. Maybe I don't know. I wasn't telling him off for being intermarried. I was just telling him he's not obligated. I didn't tell him off. But the thing is, that in the end, he had a mezuzah on his front door. He wanted a mezuzah on a small little room, which wasn't even big enough to be obligated in a mezuzah. So in the end, we didn't have any issue at all. But he said, "Oh, it's not obligated mezuzah. That's okay. I want to put it up anyway because I want a mezuzah." Well, okay, buy your own. Yeah, go out and buy one. Go and buy one, exactly. So in the end, but it's interesting that people sort of they like the spirituality of the mitzvahs, but they don't like necessarily the details. And in fact, they're embarrassed of the details sometimes. They think that the details are not. Why should it make a difference? And this really takes us.
Everybody likes taking in, and nobody likes giving out. And that's what that's basically what, on the rawest level, that's what it is. You want to feel the warm yummies and everything else and have it seep in. But in terms of putting out a little koyach and whatever it is, that we all resist.
So, that's one way of putting it, but I think people, it's not just taking and giving. Spirituality, we sort of think in our minds that that's valuable, and it's more valuable than action. Because, people, a mean person, even if they did something okay, but the fact is, that person, he's an angry person, he's a mean person. We don't like to give him credit for his actions when you sort of know how, he's really not a good person. So we tend to think spiritual things and feelings, and we put a lot of emphasis. We think that that's more valuable sometimes. And the truth is, it does have value. It's very important to the emotions, the meaning behind things, the feelings, the empathy. All of these emotional traits are extremely valuable and crucial to a healthy way of living and to serving Hashem even. But the question is, which one is the main thing and which one is extra or more of a side thing or important, but maybe not the end in and of itself. And so here we come to the main question of Shavuos. Yes, Susan.
To me, actions speak louder than words. If you have to back up what you say, I mean, it's not just, you must have you have to practice what even if it's on a small level, your actions reaffirm your spirituality.
Okay, so that's a good point. We're going to touch upon that later when we talk about, we're going to be talking about Avraham serving these angels a very festive and expensive meal. So maybe we'll touch upon that a little, Susan. So stay tuned. Yes, Avraham.
When I was in the process of conversion and I was sitting there in front of my Beth Din, one of the rabbis was a man I used to study with. And he said to me, I noticed that you talk a lot about feelings. And he said, do you think you could be an Orthodox Jew without feeling anything? And I thought that was amazing advice. And I often think of that when I got to get up early in the morning or whatever. I don't feel like staying in bed. Yeah, but, so I think that was a really good combination. I remember it all these years later.
That's so interesting. So what did he mean by asking you that?
What did he mean by what?
What did he mean when he asked you that? Do you think you could be
there was a time when the rabbis can ask me any question, right? This thing there. I mean, they can ask me anything, test me or whatever. But he just said that, I noticed that you talk a lot about feelings. So I used to think religious or, spiritual feelings. They said, can you think of me? Feelings is not part of Orthodox Judaism, in other words, he was telling me.
That's what he was claiming.
But it's not the main thing. Doing it is the main thing. We will understand, we'll do and understand.
Right. Okay. So Avraham just actually added at the end of his little story, he mentioned, we say it all, at the giving of the Torah, we said, we will do and we will understand, which is also like, puts a little clarity on this whole topic. Yes, Robert.
Both what Susan said and what Avraham said is you practice it. So it's like, you don't pray just for just to show that you're Jewish. You pray because you mean it and you're attached to it. And with Susan, the fellow who wanted mezuzah, sort of a turn of a word, he wanted window dressing instead of a door dressing, okay? He wanted that to compensate his not practicing his Judaism, all right? It was window dressing for others to believe that he was committed to Judaism. And for Avraham, it's embracing Judaism and failing the prayer.
Okay. Well, very nicely explained. Yes, Julian.
I lost my picture on the screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Doesn't Pirkei Avot say? Isn't there a saying? Say little and do much. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
No.
There is a saying like that. There's other sayings as well about how important action is. So definitely action, with what you're quoting is emphasizing about comparing what you say you'll do and what you do. But it's not really comparing emotions to action. What it's really comparing a person's pledge to his actions. And on that it says, say a little and do a lot. Promise that you'll give $100 and then give $1,000. Promise that you'll study an hour a day and then study 3 hours a day. But say a little and do a lot. Promise them you'll give them a one-way ride and give someone both ways, So you say a little, do a lot. But here we're really touching upon emotions versus, in spiritually feeling the mitzvah versus doing the details of the mitzvah. That's really what we're touching upon. Now, those ideas we're going to come to this question and these ideas. We're going to come to a mitzvah Hashem at the end of this discussion. The main part of this discussion really involves the holiday of Shavuos. What exactly did Hashem do that changed everything at the giving of the Torah? Meaning, not what Hashem did, but what changed, what really changed at the giving of the Torah? In other words, why is it such a holiday? We actually had the Torah before it was given. Noah studied Torah before it was given. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they fulfilled the Torah before it was given. And so we basically didn't really need this big revelation at Mount Sinai. And did the revelation really do much? We had the Torah already. So what was so important about this revelation and that would make such a holiday?
It's the whole world, the whole universe now.
Everybody
had the Torah. In terms of, it's the first time that Hashem contacted a people's humanity in public. That's how I would describe it. What he gave us, what happened with that contact. This is like, I forget the name of the movie, when they had the machines coming in, they were playing music back and forth. It's the first time that there was contact between one and us.
So you want to say it's where Hashem contacted the mankind and started some type of a relationship. But the thing is that the patriarchs, they spoke to Hashem earlier as well, and so did Noah.
Yeah.
So that would be a question of, did anything really change, at the giving of the Torah then? Because we did have some type of a relationship even before.
I think it did.
Okay, what do you think, Ben?
I think it shows a recognition. He recognizes that we are connected. We are working together. He has the Torah, he gives it to us, and we follow it.
He's getting right to the us.
Now, he gave it to us. There's a connection. But did the patriarchs also?
The patriarchs, he talked to them, but it was individual issues,
Okay, so what you want to say is the patriarchs, they didn't need the giving of the Torah, really. Everyone else really needed the giving of the Torah to make it more official for everyone. The patriarchs basically did everything beforehand. So the giving of the Torah wasn't really necessary for those type of people. It was really for for everyone else. In other words,
they also strained the lessons of the Torah in terms of Abraham demonstrated chesed and the conflicts that he had with that to work it out with Hashem. Then Yitzchok added his. Each one of these people contributed to the Torah in terms of what they imbued it with. Now it was time to receive it for the whole nation.
But did the Torah change? I'm sorry, what did you say, Ben?
He also promised Abraham and Jacob and that there'll be a nation. There'll be a large nation. He knew he's not going to talk to each one. He knew he's not going to even want to talk just to the leaders to transfer it. You give him the deal, and that's for everybody.
Okay, so the holiday of Shavuos, which falls out at the giving of the Torah, according to what we're hearing here at the from the participants, is basically the fact that the community now is connecting to all these laws, and it's not just the individuals, the patriarchs and individuals, and everyone now is joining this this group, this nation. It's the entire Jewish people are connecting. So that's a good point, a very well stated. But according to that, it would seem like, the fact that the patriarchs did the Torah beforehand, we're sort of saying it's basically the same for them. It's not really much of a big deal, the holiday of Shavuos or the giving of the Torah. It's mainly for the nation, for everyone else who didn't really fulfill it. But and that's a little questionable. Is that really, would that be okay to say? I think Susan had her hand up for a while. Yes, Susan.
But didn't Hashem promise Moses that he was going to give him a formal, giving of the Torah, and he would be the leader? He would be the one that everyone would go to for getting the knowledge. I mean,
there are such statements. There are similar verses in the Torah along the lines of what you're saying. Not exactly those words, but yeah, there are very similar.
Hashem promised Moses, and I believe that
very close to those words. Good, well stated.
That was important.
So the question is, what really did the giving of the Torah do for the nation? Rather, you could just say it was a nice celebration. It was a nice
a formality.
Nice event. Formality. It was more of a formality. Okay. That's but again, what all of these points are, we're sort of limiting the importance of the Matan Torah, the revelation at Sinai. We're sort of minimizing it and saying, it was more of a formality. We could have we had the Torah beforehand, but not everyone really felt so connected. So we connected more people to it, became a nation. Again, according to these insights, not that they're wrong, they all have some, there's some element of truth to them. That definitely was a formality, but did it have more than that? Was there more than that to it? Was there more than including everyone else? Yes, Yisrael.
I think that I would look at from a slightly different perspective. I think that Hashem had a long-term objective, that he wanted to feel part of the people so he could ultimately have a place to dwell among us.
Mm-hmm. So it's more about Hashem getting something from us than us really than the Jewish people really getting from Hashem. It's more about the revelation at Sinai somehow helped that. In other words, could Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob have created that dwelling place for Hashem, or that wasn't good enough? They also did the mitzvahs before. What do you think, Yisrael?
I guess if you look at a longer horizon, seems to me the ultimate destiny that Hashem was pursuing, again, was to take the initiative and help the people embrace him and fulfill his desires, because isn't that one of the major objectives of creation?
Okay, so for sure, it's a major objective of creation. But my question to you is, did the patriarchs, the way the patriarchs were doing things, was that fine? It just wanted more people, just to get the rest of everyone to get involved and build this house?
I think Yetzias Mitzrayim gave Hashem an opportunity that didn't exist before, to convey it on a familial basis is very inefficient, and that's my cut on it.
Okay. Well, in any event, all of these good, very nice insights and thoughts. I'm going to share with you two midrashic statements, and we'll try to understand them, and we'll try to delve into this and see what we can find from some of these sources. So the question number one was, what was this innovation that occurred at the giving of the Torah? We know that the patriarchs fulfilled the Torah. We know Noach studied Torah before. He knew which animals were kosher. We even got some mitzvahs before the giving of the Torah itself. There were certain mitzvahs that were given in Mara before the revelation at Sinai. So the question is, what innovation was there that occurred at the giving of the Torah? And number two here mentions that there's a verse in the Shir Hashirim, Song of Songs, that says, your good oil gives off a fragrance. Your name is like an ointment poured forth. Now, it sounds like very poetic terms, but the Medrash comments that the mitzvahs of the patriarchs were simply a fragrance. But for us, your name is an ointment poured forth. Now that midrashic statement, although cryptic and vague, but it does tell us that there must be some major difference between the patriarchs' command fulfilling the mitzvahs and our fulfillment of mitzvahs. It even sounds surprising because you would think the patriarchs' mitzvahs are more powerful than our mitzvahs. They were the patriarchs, but the Medrash seems to say no. Somehow our mitzvahs are like the actual ointment, or the patriarchs' mitzvahs are just the fragrance. They give off a good smell. Our mitzvahs are we're actually getting the real, the origin of the good smell, the ointment itself. So somehow we have to explain how and why our mitzvahs are better than the patriarchs. Now, the patriarchs, we know they were the considered the chariot of Hashem, like they were what we call a merkava in Hebrew, a chariot, and they their whole life was totally given over to Hashem in a complete way. And so how could their mitzvahs be only like fragrance? It sounds like we're minimizing the greatness of the patriarchs. Now, the interesting thing is, if you look in Maimonides, Maimonides writes something very interesting in his commentary to the Mishnah in Tractate Chulin. He mentions something interesting there. He says that when we fulfill mitzvahs, we're not fulfilling the commandments God gave to Abraham and the mitzvahs God gave to the children of Noah. We're not fulfilling those commandments. We're really fulfilling the commandments that God gave Moses at Sinai. That's what we're fulfilling. Even the mitzvahs that God gave Noah and Adam and Abraham, Abraham, he gave the commandment about circumcision. To Noah, he gave the mitzvah of not to eat meat from a live animal. Adam, he gave other commandments, the Noahide laws, 6 of the Noahide laws. So these mitzvahs that we do, we're not doing them because God commanded these individuals. We're doing them because Hashem commanded Moshe to tell us all of these mitzvahs at Sinai, which adds a little to the equation here, the fact that the mitzvahs of the patriarchs seem to be less significant that's what it seems to, that's what the Rambam seems to emphasize. Like the real obligation of the mitzvahs, the real emphasis of the mitzvahs are based on, like there's something unique about the revelation at Sinai. Like our mitzvahs are connected to the Sinai revelation. They're not really connected to Abraham's obligation and to Noach and so on. They're connected to Avram, to the revelation at Sinai. It's like it's a different mitzvah almost. It's a whole new template. It's running on a different track. These mitzvahs are on the track of the Sinai template, the Sinai system.
And
What?
therefore, so it's a Sinai system as opposed to what?
As opposed to the patriarch's fulfillment of mitzvah system. In other words, there seems to be two systems here. And we're going on the track, the Sinai track versus the original track. Like there seems to be a different obligation here, like a much more powerful rule. And again, we're not sure why that is, but we see how the Medrash is calling it fragrance, and Maimonides, even when it comes to law, Maimonides seems to be mentioning this as a law that, we have to keep in mind that our mitzvahs are not based on God's command to Abraham and to Noah. Now, number 4, we find that's number 4, actually. Number 5 here in this sheet that I sent out. This is the question that we're asking, is about the framework. So what is this difference of the framework? Okay, so now we're jumping to number 6. This is Medrash number 2. So we have the first Medrash, which we don't seem to have a full understanding of. Something to do with the patriarch's mitzvahs are only a fragrance, and our mitzvahs are the real deal. And now Medrash number 2 and 6, we have a Medrash that says, this is brought down many places, I'm sure you probably heard this before, that a change that took place at the giving of the Torah, it gives a parable. And it says there was a king that decreed that the residents of Rome shall not descend to Syria, and those of Syria shall not ascend to Rome. And there's verses that seem to be very similar to that parable. There's a verse that says the heavens are the heavens of Hashem, and the earth is given to the sons of man, B'nai Adam. Right? That's a verse in Hallel, in the Tehillim. The heavens are the heavens of Hashem, and the earth is given to man. What does that sound like? It sounds like this idea that there's heavenly stuff, that's for God. There's earthly stuff, that's for humans. And at the giving of the Torah, it says Hashem rescinded this decree at Sinai, the giving of the Torah. And there it says Hashem came down upon Mount Sinai, and unto Moses Hashem said, come up to Hashem. So originally, before the giving of the Torah, there seems to have been some type of separation between the heavens and the earth. The heavens was, the holy things there for Hashem. And earth was earthly matters. That's for humans. That was before the giving of the Torah. So somehow at the giving of the Torah, these two opponents seems to have merged together. These two opposing entities seem to have been able to merge together, and Hashem allowed the heavens now to come down to earth, where Hashem came down to Mount Sinai, and he allowed the earth to go up to heaven. So originally there was a decree: Syria and Rome couldn't meet, couldn't get together. Rome couldn't go to Syria, Syria couldn't go to Rome. There was some type of a decree against it, and somehow the giving of the Torah, that decree was changed, and the parable applies to the heavens and the earth. So, according to this, it sounds like that there's little connection before the giving of the Torah between heavens and earth. Hashem and humans had very little connection. That's what it seems like it's saying. And after the giving of the Torah, now somehow we're able to connect, which is along the lines of what some of you tried to mention about us being able to build a dwelling for Hashem or connecting to Hashem, or the entire people having, fulfilling Hashem's commandments. The only question really is that this doesn't seem to fit with the fact that the patriarchs did do the mitzvahs. If the patriarchs did the mitzvahs, it sounds like there was no decree before that from the heavens and that limiting the heavens to heaven and the earth to earth. The patriarchs did the mitzvahs. That means they went to heaven. God came down to earth. He allowed them to do the mitzvahs. So what does this medrash mean as well? So we had a question on the first medrash about the fragrance. And we have a question on this medrash as well. What does this mean that the patriarchs were not able to go to heaven and to do heavenly matters when we do know that they did the Torah before the Torah was given? And they were given a lot of reward. They were very, God appreciated all their good deeds, all their great deeds that they did.
I'm sorry, who said they don't get heavenly rewards?
No one said they don't get heavenly reward, but it sounds like they did not do anything heavenly. They didn't do any mitzvahs. It sounds from this like they were not allowed to do heavenly matters. They couldn't go to Rome. They couldn't go up to heaven. They couldn't do their heavenly mitzvahs. They couldn't do the spiritual mitzvahs. They were stuck here on earth. The giving of the Torah allowed us to do mitzvahs. Now we're able to go to heaven. Now heaven's allowed to come to earth. Before this, we weren't allowed.
Now what they did was broken down to a language we could understand through Matan Torah. It's the same thread. So.
It's not as easy as you're saying it. Well, what does that mean? Were they able to do spiritual things?
Yeah.
Their spiritual things didn't matter until the giving of the Torah. Now, all of a sudden, God looked back and said, okay, now I'm giving you reward.
No, they did.
What do you mean?
Hashem had communication with Avram and then destroyed Sodom and Amorah. I mean, that was interacting with a person before interacting with the klal of humanity, as it were.
Did Abraham, was he able to do mitzvahs?
Abraham did what he thought was right.
Did he do mitzvahs?
Hashem.
Kiyem kol haTorah kula.
And Hashem approved of all of it, yes.
He fulfilled mitzvahs.
Yeah.
But the Medrash says that humans cannot go to heaven. Heaven can't go to earth. Only at the giving of the Torah were we allowed to do that. So it sounds
only
like
earth.
Listen, if Abraham didn't do any mitzvahs and Noach didn't do any mitzvahs and the giving of the Torah happened, I would say this medrash is very easily understood. The giving of the Torah came, and now all of a sudden humans can reach heaven. Sounds great. Very logical. Everything is smooth. Except for the fact that we know that Abraham did mitzvahs beforehand. Noach did fulfilled his commands beforehand. They had mitzvahs. Even Adam had mitzvahs. So how do you explain this medrash now? Knowing those facts, how do we explain the medrash?
Paid here.
What is that?
Nobody got paid here.
No one got paid here. Okay.
Nobody received a reward.
Yeah, but I thought there was some type of blockade that didn't allow the Romans to go to Syria and the Syrians to go to Rome and the humans to do heavenly things and the heavens to come down to earth. I thought there was a blockade that limited us. Yes, Susan.
The biggest issue is there was a separation, that we were not joined together as a nation with Hashem. And Hashem needed to try to get our attention, to put us in touch with him on a spiritual and physical level, both at the same time. We were not connected until we received the Torah on Mount Sinai. We were separated. It's one.
So that's what the Medrash is saying. True. It seems like there was a big separation, a gap.
It wasn't working.
Right. It seems like there was a big gap over there, that we weren't able to really become spiritual until the giving of the Torah.
I have a question also. Did the angels have anything to do?
Susan, 1 second. However, that's the simple reading of the Medrash. But as you know, where are you, Susan? Oh, but as you know, it doesn't explain how the patriarchs were able to break through that separation, because the patriarchs seem to have been able to do mitzvahs even before the Torah was given.
But they were expected to do mitzvahs. They were.
Yeah, but I thought, but what do you mean? I thought this is the whole innovation of the giving of the Torah. Okay, if this is the innovation of the giving of the Torah, then then there was no innovation, because the patriarchs already had it.
But it wasn't.
So your point is well taken, that's the simple meaning of the Medrash. So your point is well taken. That's the simple meaning of the Medrash, is that there was a gap, there was a separation, there was a blockade, there was some type of disconnect between heavens and earth, between spiritual and physical.
Please,
that's the simple meaning.
Anna has something to say.
But it's not answering our problem. Okay, yes, Anna.
I want to go back to the origins. And the first thing that says in Torah, that I'm your God, I'm the only one. And we know that people who accepted Torah, they were, many of them, idol worshipers. They did not really have a very strong belief yet. That's it. This is number one. And we heard about other nations rejecting the Torah because it had many restrictions that many people did not want to follow. That's why this is another point. And the third point, I think that the comparison with pregnancy is because when you smell something, it's not complete. It's only the first kind of idea of what it is. But when the whole nation is saying, we accept it, and then we will, we believe you, even without going into so many specific rules and details, it shows the faith. And that's the most important, that from the idea that was open to a few tzaddiks, people who really were maybe on a different spiritual level, it became a book of laws and mitzvahs and required things to do for every average person. And people said, yes, we accept it. And that's what they celebrate. They found a clear manual, clear instructions to how to behave. It's not only a hint of this one and this one and this one. This is just like a constitution. I'm sorry to compare it, but that's the way it is. That's why it definitely can be celebrated, because I think all of this became a law, became accepted proposition.
So, but according to what you're saying, what ends up happening is that what you want to explain is that it's true, there was a big gap between humans and spiritual matters, but there were certain individuals that God allowed to break through that gap and those rules, like righteous people, Abraham, Yitzchok, Yaakov, the patriarchs. They were able to have spiritual things, not everyone else. The giving of the Torah, God let everyone do it, and he commanded us to do it. And that's the way you're explaining this, reconciling this contradiction here, because we're trying to answer this contradiction. We have the patriarchs who did the Torah before the Torah was given, and we have this idea that the giving of the Torah was a great innovation. And the Midrashim are explaining what the great innovation was. It was only a fragrance before, now it's the real thing. It was there was a rule you couldn't break through to spirituality. Now you can break through. How does we reconcile that with the patriarchs? So what you're saying is, the patriarchs there was a special leniency for them to break through.
No, it's not a lenience, Rabbi. every time when it's innovation or any type of laws or any type of scientific discovery, it is usually an idea that is open only to people who are prepared to accept it. It's a scientists who have enough education and background to understand the importance, to accept it before an average guy can do it, because it's a different spiritual level. But all of the important things in life starts from important ideas that are maybe open to only very educated, very prepared people. But when it's accepted by an average Joe, that's what matters. That's what really makes a huge difference. And that's why I believe that, considering the history of Jewish people, it is just an absolutely amazing fact that is really should be celebrated, that people in such a short period of time became ready to accept one God, except without even doubting. We know that some of the mitzvahs are not possible even to understand, but they said, yes, we will follow it. That's what I think is the most important.
So the way you're reconciling this, you acknowledge it sounds like a contradiction, and you're trying to reconcile it by saying that they were just trying it out. They weren't really able to connect to the spiritual, and God was like happy that they tried it out, but they weren't really using the
Not
spiritual.
necessarily, no.
So how are you
not
reconciling
necessarily.
so you got to answer the contradiction. So you have to tell me, why were the patriarchs able to break through the blockade and everyone else wasn't? Why were they able to go to Syria and no one else was? Like, what's the difference? What went on over there?
Because their connection to the source were
So they were
much
allowed.
more developed. Much more developed. They were ready
So it wasn't such a rule. So the rule didn't
No,
apply
it's
to
not
everyone.
the rule. It's not.
Was
it's
there a rule?
No,
Was there a rule that they couldn't do spiritual things?
No.
But
They were
the Medrash says
ready.
there was a rule.
They were spiritually ready to accept it,
Okay,
because of
but
all
there was a
other
rule.
conditions.
Doesn't matter. Humans cannot go to heaven, it says. That was the rule. It was a decree. The humans can't go to heaven.
While
So
we're
the
alive.
patriarchs, you want to say, we're allowed to. We know that they did, but the rule was that they can't. So we're trying to reconcile the contradiction. So let me move forward, and then maybe you'll try to figure out how to reconcile it, because that's really what we're trying to get at. So we're what comes out from this discussion really is that there must be some radical change that took place at the giving of the Torah. And this radical change must have happened in a way, that it's a change not only for us, but for the patriarchs also. And the patriarchs had the same rules before the giving of the Torah as everyone else. However, after the giving of the Torah, there was a radical change that changed for the patriarchs also. In other words, if they would still be alive. The way things were done before the giving of the Torah is very different than the way things are after the giving of the Torah. This is a really major insight that I don't think you automatically come up with if you just read through the Torah.
But I don't understand what you're talking about.
What I'm talking about is that the revelation at Sinai made certain changes in the way we fulfill mitzvahs versus the way the patriarchs fulfilled it. It's not just that everyone now became obligated and before we weren't a nation. No, even the patriarchs' fulfillment of mitzvahs before the giving of the Torah is very different.
Are you saying it wasn't good? They weren't good enough?
To some extent, they were missing something, and not their fault.
What?
Not their fault, but their mitzvahs did not have the same qualities that we do have after the giving of the Torah, because God changed certain rules of creation at the giving of the Torah. God made a change, so to speak. Not obviously.
You have a Viosa. You have that. greater is the person who is commanded to do something. I mean, somebody who is commanded not to do something and doesn't, no, I got that wrong too. But if you're commanded and you observe, you get more, no, not that if you're not commanded. If you observe without the requirement, your reward is not as great as if you observe with the requirement. Now, how could that be? Because when you are ordered to do something, I don't care how sincere you are, how warm you are, how much you love God and everything else, you have free will. And therefore, the first thing you want to use your free will for is to say no. So if you're directed to do something, the fact that you're not saying no and you're doing it is greater than if you're just walking down the street and you see something and you do something without being told yes or no.
So what Isaac is saying is a very nice little insight that maybe you could say that the difference between before the Torah was given and after the Torah was given is that before the Torah was given, we weren't really obligated to do the mitzvahs. And because we weren't obligated to, we got less reward. And after the Torah was given, we get much more reward because we have the evil inclination pushing us not to do it. We have free will. You know, it carries with it more reason for reward. Now, and there are other reasons as well.
A higher level. We were all raised to a higher level.
So that's a nice little insight. Again, the idea that you're mentioning, I mean, that's a nice little insight, but it doesn't really change the mitzvahs that we have after the giving of the Torah to the ones that were obligated. That all that does is explains the mitzvahs that we didn't have to do before the Torah was given and we did anyway. But the mitzvahs that we had to do before the Torah was given, those would be the same as the mitzvahs afterwards.
Yeah.
What this discussion, what we're trying to say is all mitzvahs have changed after the giving of the Torah. So we like to add to that. Again, what Isaac is saying is not wrong, and what everyone really said all had valid points, but there's more to it than that. That's the idea. There's more to it even than what Isaac is saying. Isaac is adding a very nice thing that now we're obligated. Before we weren't obligated. That's true. In many of the mitzvahs, there were some that we were obligated, but there are many mitzvahs that we were not obligated, and yet we did them. And yet after the Torah was given, there is a change in the fact that we're now obligated in those mitzvahs, and maybe and for sure we deserve more reward. But there's also a change in the mitzvahs that we were obligated before the giving of the Torah. And the way we do them afterwards, there's actually a change in those as well. And that really touches upon this fact that the patriarchs, in a certain sense, their mitzvahs, as the Medrash pretty much spells out, they were missing something. They were only fragrance. The Medrash says this. It's not my own innovation. The Medrash says that the patriarchs' mitzvahs gave off a fragrance, but they weren't real oil. The mitzvahs that we do are the real oil. They're the real deal. They're the essence of the oil. The patriarchs gave off a fragrance, but we want to explain that and understand that. So that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to understand.
Rabbi, I don't think it's fair to put down the patriarchs to make it that
the Medrash says it. Well, it's not up to me. The Medrash says it, so you have to speak to the Medrash author. Okay, the Medrash says it. It's part of Torah.
I mean, it was very important for them to start. I mean, they had to start somewhere.
Wait,
that's between you and the Medrash. The Medrash says this is the story, and so we're accepting what the Medrash says. If you feel bad for the patriarchs, that's your thing. But the patriarchs did great things, and they got great. They were very holy and amazing, but their mitzvahs could not have been higher because they were before the giving of the Torah. But had they lived after the giving of the Torah, their mitzvahs would have carried another element with them, which they weren't able to have because they were before the giving of the Torah. So again, we don't expect any more from them, but the mitzvahs that we do, we can feel proud that we're able to reach a much higher state. And of course, whatever they did helped us. There's no question. But the fact is that their mitzvahs did create a fragrance, while our mitzvahs, we can do even more. We can actually get the real oil. So what does this mean? So at the time of the giving of the Torah, what was the first word that God said? Anochi. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God. What does the word Anochi mean? Anochi means I. The Gemara mentions that it stands for 4 words. In the 4 words are Ana Nafshi Ksavis Yahavis. I put my soul into my writing. Now, what that means is that Hashem is putting his soul, meaning his essence, into the Torah and giving that to us now. Hashem is allowing us to connect to his essence. This is a very powerful idea. You know, when you relate to other people, you're relating to them on a level that they're allowing themselves to relate to you. So, for example, if you have a teacher and a student, so the teacher will relate to the student in a way that the teacher wants to teach the student. Now, the teacher also is let's say a professor. He has very great ideas about the topic and a lot of abstract insights that are going through his mind, but he doesn't share those with the student. If he does, he's going to have a student that knows nothing, because you'll lose the student. So what he does is he takes those ideas, puts them to the side of his brain, and he tries to share with the student things that are on a more simple level that the student will be able to grasp. So he's relating to the student on the student's level and relating to the student in a way that he's lowering his greatness, really, his great intellect. He's lowering it and allowing himself to relate to the student on a lower level and sharing with the student intellect that the student can relate to. So even though the teacher could maybe be writing books about great ideas that are way above and beyond the mind of the students, instead he's actually lowering himself to the level of the student to teach the student and allow the student to develop himself and grow in his studies. Now, the student also has to relate to the teacher. That means he has to try to understand. He has to work hard. And so he's relating to the student, to the teacher, also on a very high level of his intellect. So the student is relating to the teacher on his level of, on an intellectual level where he's trying to reach to where the teacher is. And the teacher is lowering himself to where the student is. And so the student is relating to the teacher is relating to the student. Now that sounds great. However, that's very similar to the mitzvahs before the Torah was given. After the Torah was given, Hashem is giving us his essence, which normally would be impossible for us to grasp. This is unbelievable. Hashem is giving us his essence. We're connecting to Hashem's essence, but normally we would never be able to grasp it. But because Hashem is unlimited, he's called Nimna Hanimnois. These are Kabbalistic terms and brought in philosophical books, this idea that that it's impossible for anything to be impossible for Hashem. That means Hashem can take his essence and allow us to connect to it. And that's what we do when we fulfill mitzvahs. We're connecting to a level that's much greater than just some logical level, some intellectual level. We're connecting to the essence of Hashem. Hashem wants to connect to us in an essential level, not just on a way of a certain type of relationship. So this is such a powerful idea that when you think of the giving of the Torah, now the whole idea changed. The patriarchs, they reached Hashem on a level of fulfilling his will. He gave them a command. He allowed them to study Torah. They studied Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's command. They're connecting to a level that Hashem lowered himself, so to speak, to connect to the patriarchs. But here we're connecting to the essence of Hashem. After the giving of the Torah, we're connecting to Hashem on a level that transcends all of these lower levels. We're connecting to the essence of Hashem. Hashem allowed us through mitzvahs. We're able to connect to Hashem in a way that we're relating to him in his essence. Now, there's much more to this, because it's also we have to take it in addition to that, where Hashem is connecting to the essence of the human being as well, which maybe we'll talk about next week, and will lead. Hopefully, that will be able to conclude with the idea of why the mitzvahs, the actions, take on such an important role. But in order to get to there, we need to explain the patriarchs' mitzvahs and how we see what the patriarchs did. How were they connecting to Hashem? So we want to explain. We're going to have to conclude here, but we'll try to explain in the next session of Mitzvah Hashem how the patriarchs connected to Hashem, and how our connection is so much greater that Hashem allowed sort of like the breaking of the normal rules of creation in order for us to be able to connect on this very high level. And so now when we do mitzvahs, we have to think that that Hashem is allowing us to give him a hug and connect to Hashem, a kiss. That as Hashem says in the Shir Hashirim, Yishakeni minashikas piu, Hashem begs Shlomo HaMelech, kiss me with the kiss of your lips, that Hashem wanted, that we're able to connect to Hashem on an essential level, and that's through doing mitzvahs and studying Torah. But this will conclude here, at least for this segment. Sei gesund, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Take
Good
care.
Shabbos to everyone.
Thank you.
Shalom, everybody. Thank you, Rabbi.